Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am the House Hacking Mom, and today I'm going to take you along with me for a what we eat in a day video. I'm just going to share with you some meal ideas, a dinner idea. I know for myself, when we come to the end of a season, we're pretty much at the end of the winter season, and it can be more challenging than usual to come up with ideas for what to feed our family. We're almost to spring. We're ready for those first bites of spring type food, but we've still got a little bit of winter left ahead of us. And I hope this video can serve as just a little bit of inspiration for you in your kitchen. So let's get right into the video. So for breakfast yesterday, I just made a potato hash type of meal out of leftover potatoes that we had had from a previous dinner. And I just took the sliced potatoes and fried them up in some bacon fat and cooked them until they were just nice and toasty, warmed through. And this is a really great method to sort of give new life to your leftover potatoes, because leftover potatoes aren't always that great, but we usually have a lot of them, because if I'm going to go through the trouble of peeling and making a potato dish, I usually make more than we need, and then I just have to figure out how to use the leftovers. This is a really great way to use leftovers and make sort of a hash brown type dish. And then I just made some simple over easy eggs to go with them, and this was a super easy, delicious breakfast. After I made the breakfast, the rest of the morning was pretty much spent working on making my homemade bread. Now, if you have watched pretty much any of my grocery shopping hauls, then you know that I talk about how I make my own homemade bread. And there are two main types of homemade bread that I make. I have a sourdough, kind of rustic, country type of crusty bread, and then I have more of a traditional soft sandwich type bread. I have recipes for both of those breads in detail in videos on my channel, so you can check those out if you're interested. But oftentimes, if I plan on using them for a lunch, I will try to get them in the oven by the late morning, and then we will cut those up and make some sandwiches. And actually, for this particular lunch, the kids just wanted peanut butter and jelly, so that's what they got with their sandwich. And then I made myself one of my absolute favorite sandwiches, which is just a ham and cheese sandwich, and I make it a little bit extra special by adding a little bit of goat cheese. And then I also like to put some sauerkraut on mine after it's done toasting in the hot skillet, and it makes it so good. It adds a wonderful slightly sour, kind of fresh crunch to your sandwich. And we are not big salad people, so I almost never have fresh lettuce in my refrigerator, but I almost always have sauerkraut. So I sort of use that as a lettuce replacement in a lot of my sandwiches. And then finally for dinner, I made some Indian butter chicken, and this is such a good recipe. If you don't have a go-to Indian chicken recipe, I highly recommend y'all check this one out. It's super simple. Basically, all it is making the sauce. You can make it at dinner time, or I actually made this sauce while my kids were napping and just let it stay warm on the stove until we were ready to eat it for an early dinner. And then you're just going to broil the chicken. So it's a very simple, straightforward dish. You're just going to take 2 tablespoons of butter, melt it in a saucepan, and then to that butter, you're going to add 1 finely chopped onion, 5 cloves of minced garlic, and 4 teaspoons of minced or grated ginger. And then you're just going to saute those together over medium heat for 8-ish minutes until it is just really nice and softened through. And then you're going to add your spice mixture. Your spice mixture is 1 tablespoon of garam masala, 1 teaspoon of coriander, half a teaspoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of freshly cracked pepper. And you're just going to add all those spices to the pot, stir it around. Try not to let any of the spices burn. And about 3 minutes is usually how long it takes to make sure that all the raw flavor of the spices is cooked out. And then you're going to add 1.5 cups of water and half a cup of tomato paste. And I don't measure this. I just go ahead and use one of the 6-ounce cans of tomato paste from Aldi. Some of the small cans of tomato paste are only 4 ounces. Usually the ounce number on your can is weight, not volume. So you need to flip it over and see how many tablespoons it says are in the can. And remember, 8 tablespoons is half a cup. And you're just going to stir that together, bring it to a little simmer. And then to the mixture, you're going to add 1 tablespoon of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. Bring that to a simmer, and then off heat, you're going to add 1 cup of cream, and you're going to blend it. I use my immersion blender for this. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can just go ahead and put it in a traditional blender and just, be careful because it's going to be hot. Or if you don't mind it being a little bit chunky, you probably wouldn't have to do this, but just know that your sauce isn't going to be as smooth as it's supposed to be. And then to finish the sauce, you're just going to add 2 more tablespoons of butter, stir it together, and then set it aside and cover it until you're ready to use it. Or you could just go ahead and put it in the fridge if you were going to make this sauce ahead of time. And then for the chicken portion of this dish, traditionally you would use boneless, skinless chicken thighs. I didn't have any boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and a lot of times for recipes like this, I just go ahead and use my chicken leg quarters that I get from Aldi, and I just know that it's going to take a little bit longer to cook because they are bone in, and that's what I did. So while I was making this sauce during my kids' nap time around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went ahead, I pulled my chicken out, and I salted it well with just some Diamond Kosher salt. If you're using table salt and you're going to salt your meat, you do need to be careful, probably only about 2 teaspoons for this amount of chicken. But if you're using Diamond Kosher salt, you can be a little bit more liberal and you don't have to worry about over salting it as much by hand. But it's always a really good idea to salt your meat ahead of time whenever you can, and just give it a couple hours because it will make your meat taste a lot better. And it will also help to break down some of the fat and some of the tougher, more gristly parts of the meat, and it will just make it better, more tender all the way around. And then when I was ready to cook the chicken, I tossed it in a little bit of homemade yogurt. You can use regular yogurt, you can use Greek yogurt here. And then I put the meat on a foil-lined baking tray with a cooling rack set on top of it. I made sure that the oven rack was about 6 inches from the heating element, and I broiled it for about 10 minutes on the first side, and then I flipped the meat over and I broiled it for another 10 minutes, and at that point the chicken legs were ready to come out, and then the chicken thighs needed almost another full 10 minutes because these were really large chicken thighs. But you're just going to want to check your chicken, and you can pull pieces out as they're ready to come out, and you're looking for them to be 175 degrees. Then let the chicken rest, and then you're going to dish it up with just some basmati rice, and I just made some steamed broccoli to go along with it, and it was a super, super delicious meal. Everyone loved it. The amount of sauce that this recipe makes is probably enough to serve 6 adults, and for our little family of 4, it's just me and my husband and then our 2 toddlers. So after the meal was done, I packed up the leftovers and I set aside plenty of sauce to go with those leftovers, and then I actually just went ahead and froze the sauce. So the next time I make this dish, as long as it's just for the 4 of us, I should have enough to carry us through another meal. And then just as a little bonus idea for desserts, if you're looking for a good dessert to have this time of year, apple turnovers are my go-to. I love making puff pastry, and it sounds really complicated, but it's really not. And you should totally check out Erin McDowell on Food 52. She has a huge, super long video walking you through every detail of how to make rough puff and full puff pastry. I have done both. And one of the things I love about the full puff pastry is that it makes enough pastry for roughly 3 packages of store-bought puff pastry. So I just go ahead and separate them out, and then I freeze them. And then whenever I'm gonna do a recipe using puff pastry, I can just pull it out and it is completely ready to go. And it tastes way better than store-bought puff pastry, and I know because I've tried both, and the homemade version is so much better. And to make the filling for the apple turnovers, I just make a super simple apple compote with just some chopped apples, sugar, cinnamon, some coriander, a little pinch of salt, a little bit of lemon juice, and just cook that down until it's a nice thick consistency. Add a little bit of cornstarch so that it doesn't get too soupy. And then I just divide it up among the apple turnovers, pinch them tight with a fork, and then cut several good sized slashes in the top so the steam can escape. And they are so, so good. And you can top them all different ways. You can put some turbinado sugar on top. It'll make a really nice crackly crust. You can do a little bit of traditional royal icing, or you can do a little bit of caramel sauce, and that's what I'm going to be doing this time. All right, guys, so that is it. I hope you enjoyed this What We Eat in a Day video. I hope it gave you a little bit of inspiration of how you can finish up the winter strong in the kitchen, and we can all get ready to jump into spring soon. Please make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I make new videos like this every week about frugal living, healthy eating, and minimalist parenting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys.